All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Scott, and welcome to the weekly trade report video for the week of March 19th, 2017. So last week, guys, I went down to Central Florida to visit some family. So I was kind of distracted a lot during the week. So I did make some trades, but kind of ended the week on a flat note. But that's okay, sometimes life happens and you got to do other things. But so anyway. I made a few trades last week, but basically kind of ended flat. It was hard to pay attention when you got a lot of things going on with family and stuff like that. My daughter is 5 months old, and my mom got to see her for the first time because we live up in North Florida, and so that's why we went down there to visit them and visit the family. So anyway, let's get into some of the charts here. The Dow Jones Industrial ETF. Ever since Trump did that speech to Congress, you can see the market's been, or the Dow's been kind of sideways, choppy action here, and we're kind of seeing that continue. There is some strength in specific sectors in the market, like the home builders, basic materials, some bios, and also the shippers. But overall, the market is kind of sideways at the moment. We take a look at the SPY, basically the same chart, right? You had the big Trump, big move on that day, and then you had the market just kind of sideways. On this day, the Fed announced their rate increase, and then the market just kind of gave that back. So it's still kind of choppy in the major indexes. IWM, similar story. If we look at the chart, let's see. It did have this spot here at around 138 where it looked like it was going to break that, but then it just kind of fell back within that range. So, the small cap Russell 2000 sector still in a kind of a sideways action here on the major index charts. So, not seeing too much there. The biotech index. So this is an interesting looking chart here. There are some good setups in the sector, but if you look at the IVB, this spot here, right up here at around 303, kind of hit that, pulled back, and then hit it again and got rejected, and then it kind of fell down below this recent low. So the biotech sector may be getting to some sideways action, or maybe even reversing here. This level at 303 is kind of a key level. If we go back 180 days, you can see right around the 300 level was a key resistance back here, and October of 2016. And if we go back even further, see that's a yearly chart, so 2 years. So yeah, this 300 level is a real key level. It acted as support back, back here, and then it kind of acted as resistance now. So it's having some issues getting through there, but we'll see how it acts. But right now, that 303 level is acting as a resistance level for the biotech index. So the energy sector, XLE, still in a solid downtrend. You can see, looking at the 100-day chart here, you can see here this downtrend line resistance still in effect, right? So the energy names are still in a bear downtrend. They've been in this bear downtrend for several months now. So maybe coming into some support area, maybe it can find some support down in this area and reverse, but I would be watching for, and I mentioned this before, is a break of this downtrend line here to give an indication that maybe this trend is reversing here. But energy names still in a bear market. So now let's talk about the shipping sector. So I've been kind of talking about this sector for a while. There's been some really nice moves in the sector. But let's take a real quick look here at the shipping ETF, SEA. And as you can see, the real key thing on this chart here is this volume. Look at this volume on Friday. This thing has an average volume of, who knows, maybe it's down here in the 100,000 or less volume here, but this is a 100-day chart. You can see where it did almost 1.8 million or something like that, almost 2 million on Friday. And if we go back even further, there's a 1-year chart, 2-year chart, and you can see, well, this is a big selling volume, but look at that, that volume is very, very high. did almost 2 million volume on Friday, and it was a technical breakout through, if you look right up here at this level, right around 1261-ish, somewhere in there. You can see how it cleared that, closed at 1265. So these shippers are looking really good. I've been talking about G&K for a few days now, and I've got a pretty good sized position in it, and it looks just fantastic for a breakout there next week. But there's several other names, not only G&K, you've got Sector Strength, SBLK, SB, you've got Salt has been a nice runner, and so it looks like that Sector Strength is going to continue in the next week. And I believe there's some kind of investment meeting with a bunch of these shipping CEOs on Monday too. I think I read something about that. That could be one of the catalysts for the move. But regardless, there's some nice strength in these shippers, and I think keep a close eye on this shipping sector for next week, because I think it's going higher. All right, next up, let's take a look at Fate. So this is one that I did trade last week, and it was a very good trade. It had this bull flag here, spot at 450. So this was one that, you know, I bought this one on this day here and sold it at 520. So I actually almost top ticked this sucker. And then, you know, it kind of pulled back, but it still held the breakout. And so technically you could have still held a piece here. And then I think they came out with news the next day and it gapped up. So that would have been a good chance to take some profits if you still had a position there. And, you know, I didn't actually have a piece. I got out on this day. But if you did have a piece on this big gap up, it's, you know, it's only good to take some profits on that kind of move there, because that's just a really nice move. And then so it pulled back, and so I tried this one again last week. I tried to get in right around this 460. I think I got in at 468, and I thought that it was going to bounce off this level, which it did, right? It bounced off 450, which is support. This $half mark here, 450. But then it kind of the next day just kind of traded sideways and just wasn't moving. So I decided to pull my position because I had earnings, I think, the next day, or maybe the earnings were on Friday. But you know, regardless, it pulled back that level again. But it did actually broke through, but it still closed above the 450 spot. So if you're looking for a nice risk reward, you could have, you know, got in somewhere in this 450 area, and then this one had a nice rally on Friday and closed up near $5. So I do think that this Fate could be going higher. It's a nice chart. This was basically a breakout pullback setup where you get the breakout, pull back to the support, and then it reverses and turns back up. So this one I think could be going higher. It's still a very nice looking chart there. Fate, it's a biotech. CFGN, here's another biotech that I traded last week and took a small loss on it. So this one I thought that, let me see here. You know, I thought that this big breakout day here was going to get some continuation because it closed above all this range here, but sure enough, it didn't. It actually broke out and then kind of pulled back, and looks like it's finding support here at this 420 area, which it looks like that may be the real technical breakout area. This one's kind of choppy. It's got a lot of candle wicks, but from an opening and closing price standpoint, you know, 420 maybe is the more key support level here. And it had a decent pop on Friday, so this CFGN, it's a very volatile one, but maybe it could be going higher. But I did take a small loss on this one last week. So, and once again, like I said, I was traveling and doing stuff with family, so it was kind of hard to really focus. So, CRBP, another biotech. Now this one, this is one I did try last week through this 975 spot. Another one that I had to take a loss on because it pulled back, and I just had to cut my position. But it's still setting up pretty nicely here. It does have some data due, I believe, before the end of this month. So some drug news on whether or not they're going to get approval for a drug, and so you can be very cautious of that, because if it comes out and it doesn't, the drug news isn't good, then this, you know, biotechs can lose huge market cap when they got bad news, bad drug news. So keep that in mind. I mean, it does look technically good here through, say, 10 breakout. but just keep that in mind. If they come out with news, I mean, these biotechs can get hit. I mean, on this, if it's good news, it could really make a move to the upside, as just as easy, just as well. But if it's bad news, it could really take a hit. So, but technically speaking, it looks like it wants to break through 10. So this is one to watch. Just keeping in mind that they do have drug news sometime before the end of this month. Galt. So Galt was another one that I just entered this thing too early and it finally did break. So I was watching it last week basically through this 192 area, somewhere in here, right? On this day, I tried to take a piece and then it didn't go, right? So you can see how it pulled back. I was just a few days too early, basically, and so I got out of it, took a loss on it, and then finally on Thursday it broke out of this kind of range here. So, congrats if you did catch this one. It was one to watch through this basically 192 area, which was the high here, kind of the high here, pretty close to the high or the closing price on this day, and then it finally broke, and then it did pull back, but it closed up there at the high. So I mean, maybe this one still looks pretty good. One to watch. GALT. CERU. Here's one that been a very nice runner, and for whatever reason, I didn't catch any of this, but this one, this spot here was on the watch list for this after this day, and then it just gapped up, and you can see here that the gap up was just the beginning, and it closed well off the lows, and then continued. So this one's been a very nice multi-day runner. And it could be going higher here if it can get through, say, 350 spot. This one could actually have some more upside for next week. It does look a little bit extended up here. 350 could be a resistance, and it have a big fall after this multi-day run. But this has just been a fantastic run, and it had a great pattern here. There was the pattern, and sometimes these things do get these gap ups, and they scare me from, I get afraid of entering because it's such a huge gap up, but sometimes these things can really keep going after the big gap up. So keep that in mind. A gap up's not necessarily not buyable. Sometimes the gap ups can gap and go, and these things have multi-day runs. So something to keep in mind. CERU has just been a really, really big runner, but I didn't catch any of it. So. ADAP, here's a nice looking, this biotech was on a watch list here with the setup on this green, at the close of this green day here. It looked like it was going to break out, and sure enough, here's one that is a good example of one that gapped up and then crapped and kind of pulled back to all the way back to the support area right around this 460 spot. You can see it gapped up and pulled back, and then all the selling gets bought up, and it's closing above this breakout level right here. So this one I think could be a nice breakout pullback. I think this one is stabilizing on this pullback to 475, and I would be watching it through maybe through Friday's high somewhere up in this 480 area. This thing could perk back up again. It's a decent looking chart. So ADAP, potential breakout pullback setup there. PTX, another bio that I've traded a couple times unsuccessfully. My timing is just too soon, but it still looks like it's setting up for a 4 break here. And if we look at this daily chart, right there at the 4 is where it's tested a couple times, and it's putting in a nice little ascending triangle pattern like this, right? So as long as that kind of holds, this is what I'm seeing here. This nice little wedge triangle pattern here. So I'd keep this one on. If this one gets some volume into it and get some, push near that 4 spot, it'd be worth a try there. It's kind of a lower volume stock, so if you can see some relative volume coming in on the push out on the breakthrough 4, it'd be worth a trade. So keep that PTX. It still looks good. right, BLD, the basic building materials sectors has been on fire, and this is just another example of a bull flag pattern that was on the watch list. So this pattern here, you'll see this quite a bit, where you get this, here was the first breakout down here, and you can see the big volume breakout, and then it went up for 3 days and then traded in a very tight range sideways, right? So that's a very constructive bull flag pattern there. And then you can see here where the volume started to come back in, pushed it to new highs. And so BLD, that sector is probably one of the strongest right now, the basic building material sector. Another name, very similar pattern as that one is CVPX. So once again, you had the big breakout, big range break, and then you had the flag tight range here through, and this one pushed through the 26 level. And so it's still hanging right above 26, so I would expect this one to be heading higher too. The whole sector is still remains strong. Another one in this same sector is AAON, and you can see how that one also kind of broke out, and it's been going up steadily higher there. Let's see, ITB. Let's see, this is the home construction ETF, and you can see that this is the home builders. You can see also, ever since it broke out of this little range here, the home builders like Lennar Homes and D.R. Horton and so forth have been strong. So just keep that in mind. Those sectors are strong. INFI, this one had a nice spot here at $3, and so this was on this day here. You can see where it broke through the $3, and then you can see how it's just nice continuation there. So another one that I didn't trade, but it was on the watch list here. And another bio stock. So this one could be going higher as well, INFI. Okay, V-Ray. This one, the first spot was at the $6, which if you take a look at the chart, you can see where, based on opening and closing prices back here, right, that was kind of a key level. Plus it was a round number. And so this one pushed through that $6 mark, closed up at this just below the 625 spot, which was another key level based on this wick over here and a wick here. And then it kind of, I think they did a public offering, so their stock dropped, but the pattern's still there, and so this one could come back and perk back up. I'd be watching it through like 625 spot. The pattern still looks pretty good, so that's one to keep an eye on your radar. All right, here's a shipper, DLNG. The shipping sector, like I said, is probably getting ready for a really nice move next week. This one had a spot here at 17. You can see where it broke through the 17 spot, and it's now just above that, and still very early in the breakout. And you can see the Friday's volume, big volume there, much higher than usual. So DLNG, another good-looking shipper for next week. BABA is in the process of breaking out. Technically, I guess it already has, depending on where you put your resistance. But I think the first spot on this chart was right around the 105 spot, like right in here, or 104.82. And so this one is hanging out right around 105 right now, but it's breaking out of this kind of sideways bull flag pattern here. And you could use, let's see, and you could use this trend line here as your stop. So, but BABA does look good. It looks like it's ready to make a nice push higher. The next resistance on BABA, if it can actually go, I think is around, let's see here, yeah, right around 108. So if it can clear that, I think that's a new 52-week high. And then beyond that, you're going to be looking back up here at around 120 area. So, but BABA does look like it's ready to go. Looks like it's ready to make a move. ATRS, here's another bio. Had a nice pattern on it. Do this resistance area here. So on this day, looked good. Right on this day here, closed at 259, which was 260. Happened to be resistance right in there. Had some big volume on that day, and you can see where it had a nice push through that spot, push higher. So that was a nice trade if you took it. Let's see. CTMX, here's a nice looking biotech. Had this big run up. Take a look at the longer term chart here. So the next level of resistance potentially up here at 1750. So you can see here where it had this nice basing pattern here, right, kind of sideways, and then it broke out of that, ran all the way to 1560, and then pulled back, right? So then it pulled back, and then rallied back up, and now it's hanging around this 15, right around 15 area here. So if this one can break, let's say, the high of these candles right in there, and then I think it's going to test this 1560 and then make a push through that. It's a nice looking chart. The CTMX, it does look good. I'd keep an eye on that one. First do say 15, 25, 30 area, and then a test, and then a break of 1560. Looks like it's going to be coming here in the near future. LJPC. This one, it looks really, really good, guys, for Monday. This is just a really, really nice bull flag here, right through this 36 spot, okay? And you can see here where it's kind of following this little ascending triangle here, where we had the pullback, put in a low, tested 36, pulled back, put in a higher low around 34. And so if this one can get through that 36 spot, that's definitely a trigger to go long this name. I don't really know what's going on with it. I just know that this is a very great looking. This is probably my second best looking pattern for Monday, other than GNK. GNK is my top, and then LJPC is definitely the second. That's a really great looking setup. So salt, let's just take a look at salt here. Here was the key spot out of this range break, this $8 spot, had the breakout with volume through 8 and held above that level, and then you can see now it's up at like 965. So this has had a multi-day run, some good volume coming in, and it could be heading higher. Like I said, I really think next week's going to be a week for the shippers, because everything's lining up, and you got sector strength, you got great patterns, and so it should be a good week for the shipping companies. AVXL, another biotech. Use this $6 spot here. It looks like it closed just above that, and so I would be looking for this one to break through 6 and make another new high through this recent high back here. A decent looking setup here, this AVXL. Alright, we already looked at ADAP. Let's see. Alright, so here's FIVN, FIVN. This one here was the pattern that I seen. And sure enough, I had the big gap up on Friday, and then gap, and then continued to go. So this was one where it broke out and just continued higher. Didn't close, not at the highs, but pretty close to the highs. So I think this one could be heading higher too. So keep an eye on this one. I think FIVN could have some more upside for next week. It's got the pattern breakout. It's got the good volume. So you could see, definitely see some more upside there in FIVN. BLCM, another bio that had a nice pattern here. Let's see, I was looking at this spot right around here. This is 14, well, there was a couple spots here, but 1450 was the high of this candle on this day, and it just kept grinding up. So on the 1450, that was a good trigger to go long this name. And so this one closed, looks like it closed at 1484. Nice mover on Friday, and it looks like there could be some more upside here as well. That's BLCM, nice early stage breakout, and it's got some pretty good volume in it. So one to continue to watch next week. Safe Bulkers, there's another bulk shipping company here. Closed, very nice green candle here. And looking at this chart here, it's cleared all the resistance. The only resistance now is up here at this, up here, way up here, like 240 area somewhere up there. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually does get up there, because this is a very strong candle, had some good volume, the sector is strong. You know, this one, if you're looking at this chart here, you know, maybe this is the resistance right in this area here, if you don't count this really massive move there, but it's cleared all those levels, has some good volume. So I mean, the next logical spot for this thing to be heading is up here, up to this high. So I wouldn't be surprised if this thing comes anywhere. You know, it may not get up that high, but I definitely think it could be getting 2 plus 220 area. So keep an eye on SB. That's a nice looking shipper as well. EURN, another shipper. I'd use this spot right around here. So let's see, zooming in here. So this one, see the big volume there, 1.5 million, and closed pretty good. I think through $8.40 approximately is the level that I would be looking to go long this name. EURN, another great looking shipper through 840. And then finally, IDRA, right around this 210 spot. This one closed at the high of days on Friday. So yeah, this one closed pretty close to this recent highs around 210. So if this one can get through 210 next week, looks pretty good. Another bio stock here, and but it's pretty. It closed good, had good volume, so I'd be watching that one next on Monday too. So anyway, that's all I got for this week, guys. Some good looking bios. Shipping is definitely the top sector to watch for Monday, and I've got a pretty good position in GNK. And I do think that did I even talk about GNK? Let me pull up this GNK. So here we go, guys. I don't know why I didn't talk about this one, but I mean, let's take a look at this chart for let's say 1 year, right? So taking out a 1 year chart, you can see very clearly here on this GNK that this, so back here, right, it closed, it tapped that $12 level, and then on this day, based on opening and closing prices, right around 12, even though this wick went a lot higher, and then it tested it again here, right, put in a higher low, tested it again here and here. So it's tested this level once, twice, 3, 4, 5, and then finally on Friday, GNK broke through and closed above 12. So that's a very important thing that happened on Friday. Even though these candles and stuff, these wicks intraday poked through 12, this is the highest closing price in over a year. So, and it had some good volume. So this pattern here is very reliable, and I'd be really shocked if this thing didn't go to 14 next week sometime. I really think this thing is going to be a nice mover next week. And the patterns there, you've got the sector strength, and you can see the volume coming in there. And it did have one last shakeout on Friday, one last shakeout before it actually closed above 12. But the fact that it closed above 12 is a very good sign, because it hasn't closed above that level. And so taking all those things into consideration, you got sector strength, you got lots of good patterns in the sector, you got the breakout to new, the highest closing price in over a year, and just a really nice pattern. I feel really good about this one. I think this one's going to potentially test this high, this candle up here. So 14, maybe even 1450, 1460 area, somewhere up there. I think we could get there next week. So GNK in the shipping sector, just look for setups there. There's a lot of them, and then lots of bios as well. So all right, guys, hope you guys have a good rest of your Sunday, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks.